bounds.
Leader Pelosi, thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So first off, we've been asking this of guests such as yourself. What grade would you give President Trump for his first 100 days?
Oh, definitely incomplete. His first 100 days is a list of promises made, promises broken. Starting with his pledge about jobs. We haven't seen a jobs bill. His pledge about health care that's going to be so accessible, affordable, and all the rest. What have we seen but something that is the biggest transfer of wealth from working families to the richest people in the country? A tax bill disguised as a health bill. He talked about things that we're going to rid the earth of disease. What did he do but cut a fifth of the budget of the National Institutes of Health? An infrastructure bill, what did he do but cut the budget of the Transportation Department? Drain the swamp, what does he have but, well, story after story. He said he's going to fire Wall Street, and he has a cabinet full of Wall Streeters. Just every strong statement he made was a projection of what he was not going to do.
So let me ask you about one area where he did get decent marks in our poll, foreign affairs. You just got out of a briefing,
yes.
A national security briefing that members of the House received, as members of the Senate got it earlier today, about North Korea and the threat there of North Korea, of Kim Jong-un, attempting to develop a nuclear weapon, a missile that could hit the United States even. Do you think that based on, I know it was a classified briefing,
yes,
but do you think based on what you heard that U.S. military action against North Korea is to stop its nuclear program is either imminent, or do you think it's necessary?
Well, I think the president is playing with fire when he plays with North Korea. I'm one of the few members of Congress who's been to Pyongyang, the capital. Many people have been to Panmunjom, but not to the capital. And this is a very police state. It's a very dangerous place. We certainly don't want them developing a nuclear weapon, and we certainly don't want them proliferating a nuclear weapon. But how we go about it has to be done with use of force as a very last resort. So hopefully the diplomacy encouraging China to do more, because China can do more.
They can, but you've been a long-time skeptic of China.
I have. I've been saying for years they haven't done what they should do on North Korea. He says things are different now. His people are saying, well, I'm not talking about what's in the classified briefing,
right,
but I can't. But in my conversations with them, oh, we're going to do things differently now, and China's going to cooperate, or we'll see. I don't like when the president says, and if China doesn't, then we'll go in on we'll do it on our own, because this has to be something where there's a consensus about the approach we take.
Do you think that when he says that, that's a gambit to try to encourage China to do it? Or do you think that he is considering unilateral military action against North Korea to stop their nuclear proliferation program?
Now, you want me to tell you what went on at the meeting?
Well, I'm trying in a hopefully a clever way. Apparently not that clever.
You have to ask him.
All right. The State Department said today that North Korea poses a growing threat to the U.S. homeland. Has North Korea's aggression or capability changed at all in the last 3 to 6 months?
I don't think in the 3 or 6 months. Over time, they have been developing with help from China and Russia and places like that, so we can get some cooperation to stop the transfer of technology. But I think it's an overstatement to say it is a threat to the United States just yet, because what is it? You want to talk about this? Because what you have to do when you have a nuclear weapon, you have to have the technology.
Right.
You have to have the technology. You have to have the scientists who know how to miniaturize and the rest. You have to have the delivery system, and you have to have the intent. And all of those things we don't know are necessarily present, especially the miniaturization to put something on a weapon. And we have our, shall we say, remedies to some of this.
Right. Let's talk about tax reform, tax cuts. President Trump announced it was a one-pager, but it's broad outlines of what he would like to do. Yeah. He wants to bring down the tax rate for businesses down from about 35% to 15%, eliminating most deductions. He says he wants to bring it from 7 different categories for the individual personal income tax down to 3. And he says it's a key campaign promise to make it more simple. Is there any part of what you heard today that you could get behind?
Well, let's just say this. We have always said that we wanted to do reform the tax code to make it simple, to make it fairer, and to make it help reduce the deficit. What the president proposed today is something that will increase the deficit by $5.5 trillion. The Republicans have avoided the responsibility of paying for their tax cuts. They're saying, oh, the growth in the economy will cover it. They call that dynamic scoring. But the fact is, it never has. It never has. This is called trickle-down economics. It never has. It's tax breaks for the high end, overwhelmingly, with a few goodies to make it look good on the side. But it always has, and they say, as Speaker Boehner said before, trickle down. If it trickles down, that would be good. If it creates jobs, that would be good. If it doesn't, so be it. That is the free market. Well, it isn't. Again, let's sit down, Mr. President, and talk about how we can lower the corporate rate, how we can give a tax break to the middle class so that we are growing the economy and making the middle class and paychecks for the middle class more robust. And all I say to my people when they go to any of these negotiations, be agnostic. You hear a good idea wherever it's coming from, we're good for it if it promotes growth for good-paying jobs in our country, creates jobs, and reduces the deficit. That's not what his proposal does.
Just, you know, he has talked about, after the health care bill disaster, he talked about maybe reaching out to Democrats. Now, I don't know if he actually meant that or if he was just saying that to scare the House Freedom Caucus and give Paul Ryan something to threaten them with. If you don't work with us, then he's going to go to Nancy Pelosi. Has President Trump ever called you and said, I would like to work with you on this trade bill or this tax bill? Has there been anything like that?
Well, I've spoken to him recently following the Syria attack that night. We always talk about working together. That's our responsibility to try to find common ground.
But has this been a specific issue where,
well,
for instance,
his people have called.
Yeah.
On the last day, I've spoken to Director Mulvaney, and I've spoken to his chief of staff on more than one occasion.
About tax cuts or about?
No, talking about the keeping government open.
Keeping the government open.
Yes.
Let me ask you about an issue that's...
But we stand ready to work with him. You want to do an infrastructure bill? Show us your infrastructure bill. Where is that? He's been, it was elected, what, 5-6 months ago almost, and we still don't see an infrastructure bill. We look forward to that. It's never been partisan, except when President Obama proposed it and then the Republicans opposed it.
You just talked about the government spending bill. That deadline is fast approaching.
Yes.
Is there going to be a government spending bill, or is there going to be just a 1-week spending bill? What's going to happen, do you think?
Well, I think that we will not, we're determined that we will not shut down government. Anyway, the Democrats are determined that we will not have a government shutdown. If we need a 1-week extension in order to pass it on the floor, the legislative part of it, I think we're okay with that. I mean, we would be okay with that. But if we don't resolve our differences, and it's just another postponement, we're not good for that. So
when
we
you
just want to get it done.
Don't resolve our differences, are you referring to the funding for Obamacare?
Well, I'm talking about the poison pills to begin with. There are probably still 70 poison pills in the bill that we can't live with. There's progress we need to make on
mine workers.
Mine workers, I wear close to my heart. I had 100 of them in the office today. We have issues that relate to how we, just relating to what the president said. He's going to have clean air and clean water, and it takes all the money out of the opportunity to do that. So we want to deal with that as making some more progress in the bill. So we have some...
Bounds.